Bases dropped on Thursday Thoughts here at STH. Welcome to Soccer's Morning Show. John here, you there. Hour number 2 is stacked. Kaylor Hodges, well, because, if you look at calendars, and I'm going to grab one of my 4 here to start off the show. So this is April, and so I'm going to try to hold it at an angle where it doesn't, reflect and shine for those of you watching on video, and you're going, dude, can you, change the angle a little bit because you're blinding me? Okay. So this is April, and you go down here Thursday all the way down to the 25th. First and foremost, it's the boss's opening night for her play in suburban Atlanta. So looking forward to that, getting back into the acting scene. And Thursday's on the show, the last Thursday in the week, right there. It's our friends from the USL show. Kaylor Hodges coming in hour number 2. And we'll go over everything USL-ish. Morning, Alex. And we will catch up with Kaylor. I've told him to invite friends if they're interested. So we've got Kaylor Hodges in hour number 2, and also Thursday's wrap-up with our buddy Niko Moreno out in Seattle, and he'll take us through everything from a Pacific perspective in Major League Soccer. We'll go over the week that was. We'll get you ready for the week that will be, and take you through what's going on with the Sounders, too. So Western Conference talk with Niko, and MLS talk in general with Niko coming up at 10:35, last half hour of the show or so. Yes, Tom, we're going to talk about that in hour number 1. And so the Airborne DJ, Tom Russo, and Ropes, and all of our other resident Evertonian fans are reveling over the notion that Liverpool is blue. Over and over and over. So it was a busy day yesterday in the Premier League. We've got more stuff about VAR to talk about. Jason is heading down later today to Perry, and Perry will be the site of the Thursday night playoff throwdown, Thursday night special, Tuesday throwdown, Thursday special. So the Thursday playoff special a little before 6, and it'll be Trinity Christian and Perry, and Jason will be down there for that. So that'll be on the network at soccerdownhere.mixler.com, and it'll also be on the Mixler app. So what I would request is that you download the Mixler app, MIXLR, and then when you look up Soccer Down Here, you can sit there and go follow. And so every time that something live comes on, you go bang, and then you're notified. And that's exactly what it does. It goes bang. So you're notified when we do live events that are on our Mixler platform. All of the MLS Next Pro action is there. All our high school action is there. So all of our live broadcasts are on the Mixler site. So download the Mixler app, MIXLR, and set your notifications for Soccer Down Here. And a little before 6, Jason will be in Perry for that particular matchup. It's going to be a fun one, and it'll be our first foray into Middle Georgia. We were supposed to be down there in the regular season, but Mother Nature decided to take her Dikembe Mutombo index finger and go, no. And there's 40-mile-an-hour winds, and folks were wondering whether or not they needed to go buy 40 cubits of wood, those kinds of things. So Trinity Christian, Perry, 6 o'clock. Sorry. Trinity Christian and Perry, 4A, 6 o'clock tonight. And so a little before 6, Jason will have that for you. So if you're just looking off a web browser, web address, soccerdownhere.mixlr.com. So you can catch up there. So it's been fun so far doing Soccer's in Session. So we're going to move this over into promoting that a little bit. So Soccer's in Session, noon show. And it's live. We're going to catch up with Luke Kreitner, one of the coaching Kreitners for the McIntosh girls side who knocked off Chambly. And we'll catch up with him. And we are catching up with our friends at Colquitt County. That might happen in the 11 o'clock hour on tape, and that'll roll over to the noon show. So Soccer's in Session live at noon here on the network. And we will get you up to date on everything that happened in the brackets with the Georgia high school soccer scene, and we'll get you ready for the matchups today, because today starts your girls action in the even-numbered classes. 2A, 4A, 6A, we'll go through all that. Like I said, Luke Kreitner for McIntosh joining us pretty much off the top at 12:05 and efforting our friends from Colquitt County to be part of the discussion as well. Some really cool stories are developing here with the soccer playoffs here in round number 2. Day 3, round 2, first day of the even numbered classification. So that'll be on at noon. And so we'll have at least one coach, and if I can coordinate the other coach, who, believe it or not, I mean, I imagine, when you win a big game at home there in the hog pen in Moultrie, you're up. Because I got an email from Colquitt County at 2:41 this morning. So either a very early wake-up call or a coach who couldn't sleep after a win. So that'll be at noon as we go. So that's the traffic for this morning in hour number 2. Hour number 1's wide open, so whatever's on your mind. Obviously, we've got to go over what happened yesterday in the Premier League, and we'll go over more fun with Stuart Atwell. Just when you thought you hadn't heard enough about Stuart Atwell, there's more, and there's more with Atwell and VAR. So we'll catch you up with all of the news that's fit to print in hour number 1. Once again, Kaylor Hodges in the USL show is there with hour number 2, and it is Niko Moreno joining us in the last half hour of the show. Soccer's in session is at noon. Trinity Christian and Perry from Perry a little before 6 o'clock tonight. So that's the traffic this morning here and this afternoon and evening here on SDH. So Tom, very, very busy this morning, and he is laying everything out for us about how excited he is that Everton pretty much spoiled everything for Liverpool. So I think that's the traffic. That sounds like a plan. All right, so opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And that is the QR code coming up here. If I can find it, there's your QR code. For those of you who are watching on Twitch, and when I put the QR code up on the screen, it gives me a chance to look from behind the QR code and grab my soda and pour it into my glass, so I'm not doing that on camera. So there's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch for our friends at Kickoff Coffee. And what you do is you go through that QR code, and don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it into youth games, youth initiatives, stuff that they have earmarked. Very, very cool from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Last night, if you missed it, we've been talking a lot about the twos. And you can go back and listen to the match last night against Chattanooga FC. And it was great to see the folks come down for the matchup last night. And it was it was a pretty cool crowd. You had the Chattanooga FC fans come down last night. They were in their section. Atlanta United too had their fans as well. And I know that you're always fighting traffic you're fighting traffic in Kennesaw to get to Fifth Third Bank Stadium. And the 90-mile drive went to Atlanta United too last night. Wins 1-0. Javier Armas with the PK in the 19th minute. And Matthew Edwards, as the ball was ready to be kicked from the spot, Matthew Edwards, he decides he's going to, he's picking it up. I don't know if he was making sure that Chattanooga FC couldn't do a shenanigan with it or anything, but so John Burke couldn't touch it. But yeah, Matthew Edwards was walking away with the ball. He's like, "Yep, it's mine. I got it. It's all me." And Javier Armas puts the ball in the back of the net, 19th minute. And so Atlanta United too held on over 70 minutes, and I know that they were chasing after second and third goals. They had opportunities. Eric Centeno is one that sticks in my mind. Matias Gajardo going near side upper 90 and just missing is another one that sticks in my head. So chances were there for Atlanta United too offensively, and I know that that's what Steve Cook will talk about after the win. But it was a great win because you had Atlanta United too with a very, very pesky defense. And I mean, they were causing problems for Chattanooga FC, and Chattanooga FC really couldn't do any building of the offense from back to front. And so your two center backs were the two guys who literally, it's like they were shaking hands as many times as they were passing the ball back and forth. It literally looked like a rally. It's just like you get the two guys, the two center backs back there, they're just passing the ball back and forth. They might have been separated by 10 yards, but they had a lot of the passes to one another. I think Chattanooga FC finished with an 86% rate for passing, and most of it was between the two center backs. But Atlanta United too, great effort with with the defense causing problems. Alex McGrath, very, very quiet in that match for Chattanooga FC. They kept him contained, very quiet in the first half, frustrated in the second half, played with a little bit more of a chip, a little bit more physicality in the second half. But no, it was great effort from Atlanta United 2 last night, getting their second win of the season. And they now have the sum total of Thursday, Friday. They have the sum total of probably 2.5 days to sit there and get ready for Chicago Fire 2. That matchup is at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. That'll be here on the network. And you'll get to listen to the Twos in Bridgeview. And we'll see just how many people are in Bridgeview for the Chicago Fire 2 Atlanta United 2 match. And remember, Bridgeview is about an hour southeast of Chicago proper. And so Fire is still using Bridgeview as a facility, but how will Atlanta United 2 take this 2.5 days, try to recover, fly up to Chicago, get to Bridgeview, play the Fire 2, turn around and come back home. Third match in 8 days. And it's going to be a tough test for Steve Cook and the Twos, considering all the energy that was all the energy that was spent, expend. You see, it's like I was trying to blending two words. All the energy that was spent in the win last night. So it will be interesting to see how everybody is. And this is where your physios come into play with Atlanta United 2. And the third match in a week, but getting the big win last night at home. You can go back and listen to it on the network. You can go back to our Mixlr site, and that's where all of the matches are archived. So if you missed anything in the match itself, want to go back and listen to it, you got a 2-3 hour drive, and you can listen to that and the pregame and the postgame show where Maddie caught up with Steve Cook, Josh Cohen, and Javier Armas. And we'll have all that stuff ready for you for the pregame show with Atlanta United 2 on a Sunday afternoon. So big win for the Twos last night, and it was the only action in MLS Next Pro last night. So it was big win for the Twos, and they were front and center in MLS Next Pro. So big win, stout defensive effort, and we can go across the board and talk about all of that stuff. My mom's, yes, they are. The Pars is absolutely correct. Pars knows about my mom being an English major. And, so you're going, okay, if I speak English very goodly, maybe my mom will leave me alone. And she never will. So that'll never happen. And my mom will just sit there and make sure that I have that specter of my mother hanging over my head when it comes to all of that stuff. And, yeah, I know I'm going to catch it. I do know that I'm going to catch it from my mom. I will guarantee you that. But there you go. That's opening kickoff. Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, Pars is like this. All right. So Pars comes in and he says in the Twitch pitch, he says, my mom's ears are with them words. That's true. And then he goes, she picks up the phone to dial into the show. Mercifully, we stopped doing that because I don't know. And if I could find it and play it on a holiday, I would. And this kind of goes into those who are plus ones who have been here from the absolute beginning. We had two providers ago. You had the capability to call into a switchboard. You activated the switchboard, and literally it was just like normal radio where someone can dial in and they're talking like a guest on a radio show over the phone. And Pars brings back the memory that we had someone who, I don't know if they were just, crashing the show, didn't know about it, thought it would be cool to come in and just dial up and go, and try to be, the obnoxious caller. And so we had a caller, Rusty, who called in, and I was in charge of the board that time. So Rusty calls in, and Rusty says something nonsensical, and I wish I could remember what it was. And so, we hang up. Phone rings again. The phone line activates again. Hit the activation. It's Rusty. And so Rusty says something else. And then I'm like, we'll hang up. So, what is it? Fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, or fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. I think that's it. And so he calls a third question. He calls in for a third time. And I'm thinking, I'm taking it at face value that, first time, long time, don't know how this works, all this kind of stuff. So he calls in 3 times. And then the third time, I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. And so that reminds me of our rusty days when we had callers crash the switchboard, and I didn't know any better. But no, there are no picking up phones and dialing in. I have to send you the link to crash in, or if you have special papal dispensation to come in at any time and you know what the code is, you can come in and crash. We don't do phones anymore. Emilio's mother, Emilio goes, English was my mother's second language. I didn't have that problem. But well, then let me ask you this: when you spoke Italian, did you have the non sequiturs that I did, and did your mom get after you for those? I mean, that's yeah. My mom, if my mom listened to the show, she would be horrified, absolutely horrified, absolutely horrified. Tom has a technical question. Anybody know if there's a setting that can keep the audio going when the phone screen is off or closed? Always have to keep it on the whole time. Yeah, I know. Traditionally, Tom, what I end up doing is I just keep my window open longer before everything turns off, before the lights and everything turn off. So literally, I'll keep it if I have to do something and I've got to keep the phone on for a while. I'll just have it unlimited so it doesn't go to sleep. So the lighting, so the phone doesn't go to sleep. That's what I end up doing anyway with all of my devices, whether it's the tablets or computers or whatever. I always end up setting it up for unlimited, and then when I'm done with it, I'll just trigger it and turn it off. So, so technical problems down here that John's trying to solve. Yeah, you don't want that. But anyway, that's opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Use the code soccer down here 15. You get 15% off your purchase. They in turn take 10%, reinvest it. Youth games, youth initiatives, cool stuff that they have earmarked from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Housekeeping, here is the Marshall Islands jersey that I know you've bought. Why don't you get the scarf to go with it? That's the scarf to help out the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation and to help them get to the next level of building their national program, get there from scratch. And it's a cool thing. It's a cool story, and we have attached ourselves to it full bore. So if you want to pick up the summer scarf from the Marshall Islands, benefiting the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, there is the scarf itself. DM me, email me, DM the show, however you want. It's $32. And if you want it delivered by the Appstermobile, it's $32. If you want to pick it up in person, it's $32. If you want it shipped to you, like we've done to Hudson and Colorado, folks in Texas and California and Alabama, 32 plus say 5, so 37. Like I said, DM me, email me, text me if you got my number, and you can help out the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation right there. It is there's the scarf. Maddie models it. You go to their federation website and you see Maddie Cruz modeling the scarf. So there you go. That is the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation scarf, and that is a great partnership that we have here at SDH. Speaking of partnerships, our friends from Alliance Nurse Corps, I've got to come up with an easel to move it up about 3 inches and move it closer to the screen so I don't have to do this every day. Alliance Nurse Corps, great partners with us here at SDH. Interested in a career in nursing, they've got over 30 years of experience when it comes to finding out what matters most to those that want to consider nursing in a career. So go to Alliance Nurse Corps. You can hit that QR code. And when you go select soccer down here as how did you hear about us? So Alliance Nurse Corps, great friends with us here at SDH as well. Another new sponsor here with us at SDH. And so Pars, I think, is doing, Pars is doing the work to help Tom out. That's what the Twitch pitch is all about. So Pars is helping Tom out, make sure that his screen doesn't go completely sideways. All right. Yesterday, we were kind of looking at what was going on in the Premier League, and this is the reason that Tom is happy. Tom and Ropes and all the other resident Evertonians are happy because Everton beat Liverpool. I don't know what it is about late season runs. I really don't. Late season runs and Everton always seem to be part and parcel to everything that we see about the Premier League late. And it's It's like the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Tax day was 10 days ago, and Everton always makes late runs in the season. Like I said, I don't know where it is, and I don't know what has caused this. Maybe the idea of pressure and making sure that you can, that you can sit there and survive, or maybe some folks might work a little better with the pressure. Maybe Everton is that way. Maybe they should just be under pressure the entire time, and maybe Sean Dyche should just wear a warm-up suit every single day. Because Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool, everybody is sitting there going, bruh, it's over for you now. You're not winning the title. And so now Sean Dyche has become a tracksuit manager, and it was one of those matches where you're going, okay, Everton is shocking the ish out of us by doing all of this to Liverpool, and they end up with the win. And right now, with the way things are standing, as we're getting close to the end of the regular season across all the divisions, Everton is that much closer to staying up. And no matter what points deduction, appeal, anything could come their way, they might end up doing it on their own and not having to worry about it. Shock result yesterday, and looking at the juice boxes going in, which is, traditionally that's what we end up doing, is we look at juice boxes and we'll sit there and go, okay, massive favorite here, don't touch this one, don't touch this one. But I don't know what it is. And like I said, Tom and Ropes, they suffer through this greatly every single season. They really do. And it is the gnashing of teeth. It is the grinding of the nails. It is, the furrowed brow, the scratching of the scalp, all of that stuff. Everton yesterday at Goodison Park was a plus 644 in the composite to win that match. And they win it straight up 2-0. Liverpool was a minus 250. So basically, you'd have to give $2.50 just to get $1 back. That ain't that good. So if you had placed $1 on Everton yesterday, you'd get $6.44 back. 2-0. Don't know how it happened. I know that Tom and Ropes and all the other resident Evertonian fans here on the show are not complaining. Crystal Palace, sorry, Alex, knocking off Newcastle 2-0. Manchester United was tied with Sheffield United at 2 before they ended up going on to win 4-2. And Bournemouth, we'll get into this one. Bournemouth beats Wolves at the Molineux 1-0 at a plus 149. They were favored going in. But our friend Stuart Atwell once again gets the people's eyebrow raised for more fun with VAR. And so what those matches do, and today Brighton and Manchester City play. So Haaland doubtful, Foden in. We'll see what happens. But because of what happened yesterday, all down at the bottom of the table, Everton is now 8 points clear with 4 matches to go. I think it's pretty safe. Just maybe get to the north of 10, so if in case they decide to knock you with another 10-point deduction, you won't have to worry about it. Get to 11 points, and then they dock you 10, you're still clear. That's the goal. Try to be 11 points clear of the drop before the end of the season because of that other appeal that's coming up. So right now, here's how it is. Top of the table once again. Arsenal and Liverpool. Liverpool 3 points behind Arsenal. Manchester City makes up one of their matches in hand today. They get the win over Brighton. They end up being a point behind Arsenal with a match in hand and 2 points clear of Liverpool. Villa's in 4th. Pretty comfortable. 6-point margin before Spurs. Spurs are comfortable in 5th. Manchester United's at 53 points. They've drawn 3 of their last 4, and everybody is staring at Arne Slot and Feyenoord to be the new head coach. Newcastle's in 7th. West Ham is in 8th. And then and this is that second group or 2B group or whatever you want to call it. Newcastle 50, West Ham 48, Chelsea 47, Bournemouth at 45 after the win. Bournemouth right now 10th place. Bill Foley and Michael Jordan, I'm sure, incredibly happy individuals. Bournemouth right now 12 wins in 34. Everybody was saying, why did you sack Gary O'Neill and bring in Andoni Iraola? Now we know. It took a little while, but you've got Bournemouth, and Bournemouth better hang on to Dominic Solanke. So Bournemouth right now in 10th. Brighton, 2 matches in hand there at 44. Wolves at 43. They've lost. They only have 2 points in their last 5 matches. Fulham's at 42. Crystal Palace at 39. Maybe that's Group 2. Group 3, if you want to talk about it, or Group 2C. Brentford's at 35. Everton's at 33. Everton's won 3 of their last 5, by the way. Only 1 match in their last 5 that they don't have points. And then the fun starts. 3 teams, 2 slots. Forest, who has gone complete heel with all of their social media, and everybody and their mother overseas in an administrative capacity seems to be ishing all over Evangelinas Marinakis and the team's approach to yelling at VAR. I don't know what you could do for any kind of punitive damages for Forest, because it's, social media, it's a manager, and it's an owner who are lashing out. Fine, maybe. I don't know if you could do a points deduction, because then you're setting a precedent. But keep an eye on Forest. And here's my question for you, now that we're talking about Forest in a bit. And this is more of a general question, so this might be the QOD here for hour number 1 to think about. Put your thinking caps on for this one. If you have a club that lashes out the way that Nottingham Forest is over VAR, if in an investigation by a higher power, in this case it would be the FA, if a higher power sits there and calls you out for it, and they wag their finger at you and say that you're not supposed to do that because, A, you're wrong, and B, it's against the spirit of the game, what should an appropriate punishment be? Because these days, and it's across the board, but since we're here in England talking about it, Nuno has said what he has said numerous occasions. No real punishment. Thomas Tuchel has said what he has said numerous occasions, and we all know about Thomas Tuchel, who's never been one to mince words. When you have individuals in positions of authority in these clubs, and they are lashing out at the other voices of authority within the game, and they are proven to be incorrect in their assessments, and they're just yelling from the mountaintop about how aggrieved they are, what should a proper punishment be when managers and owners and administrators are yelling, and they're just basically yelling at refs or groups of power, the organizational structures? What should the proper punishment be, if there should be any punishment at all? Do you send a message to owners and managers sitting there saying you can't just say these kinds of things? Evangelinas Marinakis and the social media account at Nottingham Forest cannot say these kinds of things publicly because you are challenging the authority of the game. Or did we just chalk it up as mad dudes who are venting their spleens and just let it go? It's like, oh yeah, it's okay. That's just them. They're just yelling. In these cases where you have managers who are yelling at the relationships, and if guy's a fan, shouldn't be here. You have Evangelinas Marinakis and social media campaigns and social media accounts that are yelling about what's wrong for the game. What should the proper punishment be? Rich Ransom says, just like in the NBA, it's a fine. Do you find the ever-loving you-know-what out of them to make a point? Do you sit there and it's like, I'm going to fine you, 6 figures for saying these kinds of things? Setting your precedent, what do you do? So Rich thinks it's a fine. How much of a fine do you make? Do you make a statement? Do you set a bar? Is it one of those where you go, what we'll do here is, we'll sue you, or no, sorry, we won't sue you. We'll fine you. We'll fine you X amount. You mouth off the first time, it's this. You mouth off a second time, it's this. You mouth off a third time, it's this and a suspension, and, you go whatever. But when you have managers mouthing off and saying that, the guy shouldn't be here because he's a fan of the club that we're racing against to try to stay afloat, is it just a fine? Rich thinks so. So that's the QOD for this morning. In the case of Nottingham Forest, since we're there, what do you do? If you're in charge, what do you do? So it's just, that, like I said, that was what was sticking in my collective craw this morning with all of the things that we are chasing after here. What do you do? What do you do if it's Nottingham Forest? Do you fine him? Do you suspend Nuno for saying what he says? Do you suspend Marinakis for being an owner? What's he going to do? Not invest? He's already invested $250 million in transfers. So, Marinakis is not going to stop investing. But what do? Do you silence an owner? Do you turn it into a fine? Those kinds of things. So that would be the QOD off the top of my head. But Gary Neville, and like I said, Ben Rumsby at the Telegraph says this. Gary Neville has accused Mark Clattenburg, speaking of Nottingham Forest, of acting like a Navy SEAL. He's acting like a Navy SEAL because of everything. And Gary Neville is not going to be at the Forest-Manchester City match because of the back and forth about Stuart Atwell. Neville, who has compared Forest's conduct to that of a mafia gang, he's not going to be there. Forest obviously mad about Neville's comments and are even understood to have discussed whether to take legal action over them. This is where we are these days. The litigious nature of our society. Somebody says something on television. You have impugned me, sir. The only thing missing from Evangelinos Marinakis and Gary Neville is the two of them standing on a pitch. Marinakis takes out the white glove and slaps Neville over the, in the jaw with it. You have impugned me, sir. Whack. 10 paces. Soccer ball at 10 paces. And so the implications of the comments by Neville, and now he's dodging any issue. He's going to go to Spurs instead. Neville said he'd received a message from a Forest fan on social media, and once again we get it about social media, just asking whether you're at the Nottingham Forest Man City game. I'm asking for 27,000 friends. Neville added, I rang Sky up and said, I need the North London Derby on Sunday. No, I'm at the North London Derby, by the way. And so Neville doubled down on his criticism of what Nottingham Forest did, or Vargham Forest, I guess we should call them by now, saying that Mark Clattenburg needs to resign. Quote, you've got Clattenburg almost like a Navy SEAL in the director's box, crawling along to the CEO, whispering. The reason I asked him to resign was because if he actually saw that Luton tweet that went out, he actually has to distance himself from it, or he's part of it. If he's a part of it, I'm like, wow. The second part of it is it's football, right? If you're the leader of that football club, since Mark Clattenburg came in the last 10 games, they've won 1 match. In the 10 games before, they won 4. You never give football players or employees a get-out excuse ever. He's given them an excuse to not win. Now, that might sound crazy, but when you put that negativity in Niko Williams, he's probably a really good player. He's coming out on Sundays talking about referees. They're all consumed about referees. They've given themselves an excuse. Everyone's against us. That can be a motivator, sidebar. It's not working for them in this strategy of the way in which it's going. What they need to do is switch their mentality completely, forget about referees, get Clattenburg out of the director's box so cameras stop going on him, concentrate on football because they're going to go down if they're not careful. So we're not done with any of that. I can't say I'm surprised, mind you, that we're not done with it. Yeah, I mean, look, this is going to end up being a focus for the remainder of the season. That is not going to go away. And speaking of referees and the Premier League, we now get the release from James Ducker as to why Vincent Kompany was given a 2-game touchline ban and a 10,000-pound fine. Because apparently Vincent Kompany repeatedly branded Darren England an effing cheat. And I guess next time Bart's on, we need to ask about that. Because when you are when you are a part of something and you are labeled an effing cheat, when you're labeled an effing cheat, that goes up against everything. Everything that you've worked for to this particular time, and you're labeled an effing cheat. That's what Vincent Kompany did to Darren England. That got him a 2-game ban and a fine. You're an effing cheat. He didn't use the word effing. And apparently he said it more than once. Got the red card for his behavior in the 2-2 draw against Chelsea. But Kompany labeled Darren England apparently an effing cheat. The independent committee met on April 10th. FA released the written reasons from the hearing. One of the games is suspended until the end of the year. James Bell and an AR for that match was the one who came forward after England awarded Chelsea a penalty following the foul on Mudryk by Laurent Assignon. Quote, following the award of a penalty to Chelsea in the 40th minute, the Burnley manager reacted angrily by moving out of his technical area, throwing his arms aggressively and shouting at the referee. Continues. As the decision was being checked, I attempted to use members of his own technical area staff to calm him down, but Mr. Kompany persisted to insult the referee by pointing towards him and calling him an effing cheat numerous times. Despite the attempts to calm him down, Mr. Kompany then entered the field of play briefly, again gesturing toward the referee and shouting, "You're an effing cheat." I informed the referee that a stage 2 red card sanction was required for the Burnley manager. As Darren came over to issue the red card, Mr. Kompany again said, "Effing cheat." See, now I need to go look at the video to see if this is what he was saying. After his sending off, Mr. Kompany remained in the technical area for some time, causing a delay to restart of the game before he eventually made his way down the tunnel, end quote. Kompany admitted his language and or behavior during the game, quote, was improper and or abusive and or insulting toward a match official, as well as questioning the integrity of an official. He attended the hearing not to justify his behavior, but to apologize personally. His solicitor had said the incident was out of character and that the red mist had overtaken him. The red mist. I have to remember that. The red mist has overtaken us. Burnley also sent a letter in support of their manager, citing the intense pressure of the relegation battle. But the red mist has overtaken him. The red mist. I have to remember that one. You get in trouble with your boss at work. You go, it's like, the red mist has overtaken me. I'm sorry. I've got to remember that one. The red mist. And we mentioned Stuart Atwell. The Bournemouth Wolves match yesterday. Atwell was, maybe looking for a little quiet. Not so fast, my friend. I needed my Ticonderoga number 2 pencil. So yesterday, Wolves supporters, after Atwell disallowed a Huang second-half equalizer, it was a bit of a getting together in the build-up. Stuart Atwell initially awarded the header before VAR's Darren England. All these names, they keep circling back. Advised him to the monitor to review a coming together by Cunha and Justin Kluivert. Kluivert shoves Cunha, and the Wolves substitute responds by flinging an arm in his direction. Didn't appear to make any contact. But Kluivert did not appeal after Wong converted the cross. Gary O'Neill placed his hands on his head, and the fans let Atwell know the rest. It's not football anymore, what they were yelling. So you have Stuart Atwell and Darren England. Two guys that we talked about in previous paragraphs. They come back and we get mentioned with the Bournemouth and Wolves matchup. Bournemouth once again with the win. Stuart Atwell. Ooh. That is not a kind week. That is not a kind week for those two individuals. Manchester United, apparently, and we talk about PSR. There is a thought out there right now with the Premier League that the Premier League wants to do this. What they want to do is involving profit and sustainability. Apparently, there are new proposals that would change PSR. The introduction of anchoring for the top flight, a system whereby the biggest spenders in the league would be tethered to the income of the last place club. So the income of Sheffield United, for the moment, would be a direct link to anything that you could do if you were, say, Arsenal, Manchester City. Good luck on that passing. The idea behind the anchoring, according to our friends at The Guardian, is to limit the gap in spending between the richer and poorer clubs. That's not going to work. Sorry. That is not going to work. The policy has been mooted within the Premier League for some time. Proposal was made last year, arguing the maximum any club could spend on wages should be capped at 4 to 5 times the money received in TV revenue by the last place team in the division. United believe that a model would limit the ability of clubs at the top of the division to grow, and the way to encourage more competitiveness would be to improve the ability of the middle-ranking clubs to invest. Premier League has said it will revise PSR after a season of what they were dealing with Everton and Forest. Clubs and supporters alike both hate it. Premier League has deferred making an offer to the EFL on revenue distribution pending the outcome of their cost control discussions. The anchoring proposals are to be discussed at the shareholders meeting next week for the league. Final decision hopefully to be made in time for the all governors meeting in June. Last month, the clubs agreed unanimously to adopt another form of cost control, limited player-related spending to a percentage of revenue. And this model, similar to rules being introduced by UEFA into club competitions, mandatory for all clubs who qualify for Europe. Cost controls could run alongside anchoring if approved, rolled out in shadow form in time for next season. But if you look at the teams in the Premier League, Arsenal's not going to vote for it. Liverpool's not going to vote for it. City, no. Villa, Unai Emery has done with the resources that he has been given the 4th place finish currently, and they have them headed for Europe. So I don't know. Spurs are going to want to invest. United doesn't like it, so that's 5 of the top 6 we're fairly sure of. Newcastle is probably voting no. West Ham, probably voting yes. Chelsea voting no. So that's 6-3. Bournemouth is finding an investor. Morning, Abby. Bournemouth had found an investor in Bill Foley. How much will Foley invest? We'll see. Right now they are a club that has an approach and is doing spending in a wise manner. So let's say 6-4, 7-3. So let's say 6-4. Brighton does it their way. I don't know if they would care about any kind of constraints one way or the other. They have a system. Wolves have a system under Gary O'Neill, so I don't know if they would care one way or the other. Fulham, Shad Khan, you know that he wants to invest, but he can only invest to a point. Crystal Palace, they're happy to be here. We're feeling good. You know, as long as they are doing just enough to be right there, you know, they're B minus, C plus. They're hanging in right there. Brentford, I think that with their system, I would think that they are happy with how things are. But, you've got to find those players that you can bring in like an Ivan Toney, and then when they improve, you can turn them around into a larger investment, bring in more players, and so on and so on. I think that Ivan Toney is the first test for Brentford to figure out what's going on with their system, what they can get, how they can reinvest it. We'll see with Ivan Toney. Everton, it's going to depend on the owners and who the new owners are. 777, we've talked about it ad infinitum. Don't do it. Don't do it. And there's apparently been a look at folks from Dubai who might be interested, so we'll see what happens there. But 777, don't do it. Because if you do it, you'll be worse off. Worse off with a half-built stadium as you're trying to turn the page and go into a beautiful new barn right on the waterfront. If 777 ends up being your new owners, this is on the Premier League. Because we've talked about it. Shown you what the problems are with 777 across the board. And if the director's test and the ownership test approves 777, I fear for you. I'll say it right now. I fear for Everton if 777 is approved. Evangelinus Marinakis in Nottingham Forest, he'll spend forever. I don't think he would vote no because he wants to just spend. Luton does the things their way, so I don't know if they would vote for constraints because they're already self-constrained. Burnley, they have a way. Sheffield United, they don't have the money to compete. So I don't know if it would even pass just its muster on its own as a proposal because it's like you have three groups. The ones that would vote, yes, we want those constraints. 2, the clubs that invest and don't want them. And 3, the clubs that have a system and may not necessarily need the ceiling and the ladder to begin with. So I don't know. It seems like much ado about nothing by the time we're done. I don't see it passing when you get to the meetings in June. As we've gotten into the discussion about the Premier League this morning, I know it's been a bit of a deep dive. Mickey FC, thanks for coming by. We don't traditionally talk this much about the Prem. We do talk about it a lot, but devoting an entire hour just because of all the newsmaker stuff that's here. Refs don't know what they're doing in England. They too much rely on VAR, not their own decisions. Rich, Shad Khan takes AEW's checkbook out of Tony's hands. Fulham would have more money. True. I mean, when AEW is bringing in Ospreay and Okada and just all of the talent that they do have, and think of the talent that's injured. There's a lot of money being invested in AEW right now. A lot of the worldwide talent is there. I think they're doing just focus on yourself. Don't look at everybody else. Do your own thing. That's my biggest thing. You've got all these great names. Do your own thing. Tom says that Bramley Moore Dock is way more than half built. What about the infrastructure and the pipes? Is any of that done? No, Tom says check out the progress videos on YouTube. But no, look, I worry about Everton. I mean, every single season, there's always that run at the end, whether it's Sean Dyche or Big Dunk or Frank Lampard or anybody. It's always there at the end. It makes for fantastic television. You're always safe at the end of the story. How many years in a row can you do it? How many years in a row? Kaylor Hodges and the USL show joining us in about 5 minutes, starting hour number 2. But how many years in a row can you do it? How many years? I mean, like I said, it's great television. It's fantastic television. But you're like, do we really need to go down this road? Do we really need to go down this road? Just saying. Do we need to? Drive yourself crazy? But that's what folks like to do. A couple of other things before we get into USL and MLS in hour number 2. Yesterday on One Soccer, north of the border, it was a conversation that Gareth Wheeler was having with Christian Jack. And Christian Jack was discussing the situation as they were trying to find a manager. They still are trying to find a manager for the national team, men's side. And Christian was asked by Gareth, where's the search? And Christian came up with 45 seconds to a minute of saying that Canada Soccer was looking at big names, and they're looking at not so big names. They're hoping to have their list pinned down to a couple of names internationally, and that the search is still ongoing. But there were some big names, and they hope to have a short list coming up in short order, possibly having an actual guy in charge in short order. We may have a couple of those names. Canada Soccer, according to Anthony Lapopolo over at The Score, Canada Soccer has approached Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Jesse Marsch about taking charge of the men's national team after failing to land an interview with Jose Mourinho. This is from Nizar Kinsella over at The Standard. Reportedly unclear if Solskjaer or Marsch will proceed in the talks with the Fed. Mauro Biello currently leading the national team on an interim basis and probably through the Copa. Solskjaer has not coached since November of 2021. Jesse Marsch, once again, moved to Italy after he was fired from Leeds in February of 23. Mourinho turned down the opportunity. I do not speak. I choose not to speak. Turned down the opportunity to speak with Canada because he's waiting for a higher profile role. Canada Soccer seems ambitious in their search. Remember, Frank Lampard was a part of the discussion. Carlo Ancelotti's former assistant, Paul Clement, ex-Middlesbrough manager Aitor Karanka are considered other candidates for the role. But apparently, Jose Mourinho was asked. And Canada has approached Ole after Jose Mourinho and Frank Lampard have rejected it. Mourinho, Marsch, and Solskjaer, whether they would go for it at this stage is unclear, according to Kinsella. I've tapped into the article. Forge FC coach Bobby Smirniotis, who is widely regarded as one of the best coaches in Canada, has also been interviewed. That would be my choice, would be Bobby Smirniotis. Interest in Clement could be part of an ambitious ploy to attract the Real Madrid manager Carlo Ancelotti once he leaves Spain. Hey, Paul, come on over. You want to bring your boy Carlo over too? That'd be great. But that's what you're staring at, legitimately. According to Nizar Kinsella at The Standard, they've approached Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They've approached Jesse Marsch, Jose Mourinho, Frank Lampard. Okay. Sure. I mean, shoot. If you're Canada Soccer, why not swing for the fences? Why not? Lampard says no. Jose says no. Solskjaer, Jesse Marsch, and Bobby Smirniotis. I'm hoping that with the investigation that you would have your people do, if you're in a situation like this, if you are Marsch, Solskjaer, Jose, Lampard, you looked at the Canada Soccer situation and you went, bruh, nah. Literally, that's what you did. You go, bruh, not so fast. No. I need to know where my money's coming from. I need you and I need Canada Soccer business and the men's national team to figure it out. You got to get your head screwed on straight for this one. What's my budget? What can I do? Where are my sponsors? And why can't I get more money? And, of course, Canada Soccer and Canada Soccer business would sit there and try to go, well, if we bring you in, it's a way to attract more money. Literally, this is the chicken and the egg syndrome and trying to hire a national team coach. Right now, Canada is trying to finance an Infiniti or a Range Rover on a Honda budget. But what they want to do is they want to go to the Range Rover dealership and go, Well, if we're driving around in this Range Rover around town, folks are going to want to know where we got the car. They're going to want to know. They're going to come to the dealership, and they're going to buy more Range Rovers. Literally, that's the approach here. You're trying to go to the big dealership at the end of the block and go, I want that car. And the salesman's like, okay, your credit report sucks. But no, it'll be great, because what I'll do is I'll bring in more business. More people will be here. And whether or not I make my payments monthly and I make my payments on time or not, that's an entirely different matter. Let's focus on me and the car. Salesman's like, well, bruh, you got to make your payments. No, but if I bring in more people, that's more money for you. You won't have to worry about me as much. Seriously. Canada soccer. Jose Mourinho. Yeah, look, I'm just going to say it right now. With the budget and the sponsorships and the deals that you currently have in place where you got issues, Bobby Smirnionis is your man. He knows how to work on a budget with his time at Forge. Do it now. Get it done. Move forward. Wow, Nizar Kinsella's opened the door. All right, it's after 10 o'clock Eastern, so that means one thing. It is time to bring in Kaylor Hodges, talk about everything USL. Hello, Kaylor. Sorry I was ranting about Canada soccer.
As we all are.
I was just like, seriously? Bruh? I mean, really? You're going after Mourinho and Lampard and Marsh and Solskjaer on your budget? You're going to be paying them your entire budget. You ain't got no revenue left. So anyway, like I said, it was, hi.
Hey, it's good to know that Canada got the same response that we did when we reached out to Mourinho, Jesse Marsh, and Lampard as well. So it's good to know that we're on equal playing fields.
But there's more of a budget here south of the Peace Bridge, my friend. As always, what we like to do is we like to bring you and the at USL show here on the last Thursday of the month as kind of a way to recap things, go over the good, the bad, and the ugly, the good old GBU, look at tendencies and trends, not tendencies and tens, because then that would be something entirely different. But look at the month that was inside a USL Championship, USL League One. But let me start with Open Cup and do something from like 30,000 feet a little bit.
Sure.
When you look at the impact and the input that USL Championship and League One have had so far in Open Cup, what have been some of your observations and your friends at the USL show?
In terms of League One, because they've had more of an Open Cup run at this point, I think a lot of championship teams just saw that League One's not as far as they think it is. I've been saying it for a while, but I think the gap is almost non-existent. Almost. It's close. As for League One versus other Division III, you can tell by their record. I mean, League One, you can tell that they have been playing more matches. You can tell they're a little bit more mature. They were able to close out games, and they were able to get some late winners or get some late results. I mean, you saw the Spokane versus Las Vegas. Andre Lewis, who's a longtime USL Championship guy, decides to have a go from 30 yards away on the final kick of the game. Yep. If he misses, the game ends. He's the worst teammate ever. But, Spokane was in that game for a long time. And I think you see that gap between USL League One, the rest of the Division threes is pretty wide. And the gap between the USL League One and the championship is not that much. As for the championship, I feel like the teams that you thought would win did. I feel like the teams that you kind of put on upset alert got upset. And I know that seems like really hard-hitting analysis, but it does kind of show that the gap is already there in the championship. Your haves and have-nots are really showing why. I think you're probably shaking your head and questioning your Rhode Islands, your Hartford's Hartford admin. Don't tweet before you play. I think those are the ones that you say, how did that happen? But if you also look at Rhode Island, they hadn't gotten a result until just last week. I mean, they gotten draws, but no wins. If you look at Hartford, it was looking shaky at times anyway. So those weren't even entirely shocking results either.
When you look at Rhode Island, I know that first year club. I would think that that you're trying to balance an expectation with that of being a rookie, and it's like you're trying to get guys to play together, and you've had a training camp, and hey, you're going out there now as a first year club, and so those growing pains are there, but you've been thrown into an Open Cup experience, so you get this on the job training from a different aisle in the store. So it's an interesting mix for Rhode Island out of the block.
Yeah, League One. I mean, when you look at their League One match or when they did the Open Cup match against Charlotte, guy like Jackson Lee came to Rhode Island to get experience. He was going to be an MLS2 guy, at best a starter in MLS2. And he comes over to Rhode Island to be a GK2 with the senior squad. And Coque Vegas gets hurt, and he is thrust into first team action with adults, which wouldn't have happened in MLS Next Pro. And he starts off hot, but then he gets it. He kind of gets it to him, conceding 4 goals. A couple of those you say that's a first year professional. And that's why it sucks, but that's why you do go to the championship. You go to League One right away, as opposed to maybe Next Pro, because playing against grown men, even if they are in the division below you, that is just a completely different animal than college or your, academy leagues.
And this is what we saw before a lot of the MLS second team sides moved over to MLS Next Pro, is that you had those matchups with the second teams from Major League Soccer with young men, and I'm not kidding, 16, 17, 18 years old, going up against those adults that are twice your age. Now it's just more self-contained when it comes to these individual franchises. So it is young men getting first team minutes against other first teams. It's like first team versus first team. This is not first team versus second team. You're a 16, 17, 18-year-old. You're being thrust into a situation right from the beginning.
Yeah, and it's a good learning experience. And, I'm one of the people, don't shoot me, even though I'm on the USL show. MLS Next Pro does have a place in this country.
Yeah.
And that was a thing that was a big talking point a few weeks ago with MLS Next Pro bad and people want to just get their shots in. It has a very important place in this country. The first 3 letters is what scares people, but there is a point. There are academy leagues everywhere. The Premier League does it. The Bundesliga does it. Everywhere does it. It's a good place for those guys to learn. But if you want to be a professional, going to your League Ones, your championships, that's a great place to get real world adult league experience.
When it comes to coaching hot seats, traditionally, where are you and your compatriots on the USL show before you sit there and you're going, okay, hot seat, hot seat, hot seat, hot seat? How much patience do you have when it comes to this particular topic on the show?
Unless there is a scandal or it is just truly horribly awful, and forget names on paper, if they just look poorly coached, I think we all typically give a year and a half. Let them get 1 full off season, maybe 2 full off seasons to build their roster, and then you go from there. Which, speaking of hot seat, I think right now for us, there's only one true hot seat, and that's Brian Clare out in El Paso.
Yeah.
He's had 2 full off seasons, and he's built the roster that he wants, apparently, and it looks horrid. Just absolutely abysmal. He is, square peg, round hole, round square peg, whatever it is.
Yes.
That's what he's doing. As I don't know if you can hear my cat just absolutely just raging havoc. So
nothing wrong with that, brother. We got pets all over the place in our studio.
Yeah. So just wanted to, it's like, what is going on? That's what's going on.
That's all good.
But Clare out, he's, I think, the only one that's truly on our hot seat right now.
How much does the early season schedule compression lend itself to the opinion? Because it was 3 matches in the first week of the season alone for to get those matches in, and they didn't do well out of the blocks, and it hasn't It's been compounded ever since because they're 0-5-2 in their first 7, but 3 of those I think happened in the first week of the season.
Well, don't forget about the friendly that they put together and their Open Cup match. I mean, what they did, I think if I remember the number right, and Phil can correct me later from Seriously Loco.
Yeah.
5 matches in 2 weeks, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a friendly that they organized right in the middle of the heart of their fixture congestion. They started off congested and just said, we'll put that in there. It was dumb. I think the biggest issue is not the results, it's how they're happening.
Right.
He is forcing this 3-back with Bolu Akinyode as a center back who is, if he's playing center mid, he is in the conversation of the best holding midfielder in the league. And I will go ahead and say if he is playing holding mid, he's the best one. I don't think it gets better besides maybe Aaron Malloy, but those are 1A, 1B to me. He's playing him at center back because he is so just hell-bent on playing a 5 at the back system. When if you were to change the system to a 4-2-3-1, a 4-3-3, maybe copy and paste exactly what Hartford's doing and put it on El Paso, I think that team goes from losing late to winning big. I think that's all he has to change, but he just has a refusal to do it. That's why I think the hot seat exists. Forget the results. Results happen, right? Like sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you're just out of form. But when you force your roster into something that's not built for it, despite building the roster yourself, that's when you get on the hot seat.
And sometimes it rains. That first week, Hartford beats you 1-0. You draw Monterey Bay, and then you only lose to Lou City 1-0. And that was your first week. You had those. It was 3 results, and you lose by a total of 2 goals. Then you lose to Vegas, and Vegas in itself is another story where when you bring in Joey Batts as an owner, and I guess he is rubbing off on Vegas so far with what they're able to do. New Mexico in your derby beat you 3-2. Then you draw with Tampa Bay. So it's like it's a mixed bag here. It's like when your defense is locked in, you get the results like you did against Lou City, even though you lose 1-0, and then you draw Tampa Bay 1-1, but then you end up in a derby and it's a 5-goal crazy pants match where it's 3-2. It's like it's almost like the HAL 9000 here from a 2001: A Space Odyssey. You're getting conflicting instructions here.
Well, the thing is that they live and die by the wing back. Like they want their wing backs to just basically be wingers, which is great, except they're not really living by the wing back. They're just dying there. And, those matches where it works and you're getting all the goals, well, they're still not getting back. At this point, I think you have to say, sit back and let your attackers do work because they have good players and they're still waiting on Joaquin Rivas to get back and fully be healthy. But it just doesn't seem like the roster that was signed was what they had envisioned, or maybe they just envisioned different players. And then when they got there, it was something else. You talk about the Tampa Bay game. It takes a 75-yard attempt to get the draw. I mean, and I've went on a rant about this. Jordan Farr, and I see Harry Austin in the chat. Not on Jordan Farr. Why are you expecting someone from behind the halfway line from a diagonal angle to shoot 99 times out of 100, maybe more? That's not even on target. And past that, it's normally not even going to get over the keeper's head. But it takes an absolute wonder goal up there for best goal in franchise history for you to get a draw. That's not the sign of a good team.
Okay. What about Colorado Springs out of the blocks at 0-5-1 in their first 6? No hot seat there?
That one's hard for me because I don't know if that was really the roster that they wanted to have. And I know some people were bullish on them coming into the season. I don't know why. There's players that you like certain players on there,
right?
But it just doesn't look good to me. John Morrissey's latest USL Tactics show, which you can check out on our Twitter or the top of our shows on the
There
USL
you
show.
go. Get the plug in. Nicely done.
He did it on Colorado Springs, and it looks like they might have turned a corner tactically, but turning a corner tactically was getting a draw, not a win, a draw, and it still looked anemic at times. I don't think it's a hot seat, but maybe that changes a little bit later into the season if they don't show any more improvement.
Somebody might have flicked the switch on the seat warmers on the driver's side. One more team on the hot seat, maybe not a Miami FC, but the Miami FC. We got to see them go up against South Georgia Tormenta in Open Cup, and it has been an adventure for the Miami FC in their first 7 matches. Only one win in USL Championship so far. And it seems like Nocerino cannot settle on a keeper. It seems like the offense is there, but things through the first 7 don't seem to be working well in Boca Raton.
Considering the fact that they were unanimously picked to be the last place team in our fan votes, which got over 150 votes from USL Championship teams, and they were the unanimous 150 people all said that they would be the worst. That said, Miami, they went cheap because when they spent a lot of money, they were bang average. And now they are saving a lot of money. And when they are clicking, it looks pretty good. That's the thing. At the start of the year, they were really showing signs. They were really showing that they could be decent. Now, title contenders, no. Playoff team, maybe. But I think they've already shown more potential than anybody gave them credit for. And if they continue just being awful, that is, maybe you talk about it, but they were built to be cheap. They were built to be affordable. They were built to just kind of bridge the gap. And I think that's what happened. That said, on the goalkeeper thing, I think what you're looking at is just I don't think they really know what they want in terms of style. Because Ndai, he seems like a guy who, whenever I watched him, he doesn't seem as comfortable with dealing with the ball at his feet, more specifically pressure. And maybe that's what they want, is just a little bit more of a ball playing goalkeeper. But, those are truly hard to come by. And so I think you kind of have to deal with it. I like Ndai. I think he had a howler, obviously, against Legion this last weekend. But even then, I don't really think that was as much of a howler because he lost his footing. But if you saw, there was another play that I posted by Legion's goalkeeper, Romero, where it was the same exact ball played. He let Romero, the 17-year-old, let it come in a little bit deeper. He decided to take on and have a proper challenge. But even then, he misread the ball when it hit the ground. So something tells me that on the ground, there is like a divot somewhere, or there's an extra slick spot, because at the same time that the ball hit that exact same spot for both players, they both misread it.
Oh, wow.
And I decided to attack it head on. Meanwhile, Romero let it come in a little bit deeper. So Romero had more time to react to whatever's wrong with the pitch there. Meanwhile, I just had to deal with it.
And so looking at the Miami FC, it'll be the color your own adventure coloring book so far in USL Championship.
As for the Tormenta side, that just want to say it real fast.
Yeah.
A team who has never lost to a championship team in Open Cup match, it's no longer a cup set. I mean, I don't think there's a single team in the championship who can go into playing Tormenta in the Open Cup and say they feel even okay. I mean, listen, I know eventually Dell is going to get in here, Ben's going to get in here, and they're going to hear me say this, but Tormenta should be, or Charleston should be a little scared. I understand that Charleston is an absolute wagon and is one of the top 2-3 teams in the championship.
Right.
But US Open Cup Tormenta is just another monster.
I mean, it literally is one and done. You sit there and you look at film and you make sure that you know what's going on. But yeah, it's going to be fun with Ian Cameron and Ben Pierman in the next round. Now that in the Alonzo division, let's go from the questionable parts to the successful stuff. We'll go from the bad and the ugly to the good here. As Kaylor Hodges from at the USL show on Twitter is hanging out with us as he always does for the last Thursday of the month. The West is the standard shootout that we know it to be. Right now, you got 5 teams separated by 3 points at the quarter pole. Sacramento, Monterey Bay, New Mexico United, San Antonio, and Harry's whooping on that. And then our friends at the O&B Soccer Cast, they're happy as well because they're at 12 points. So 5 teams within 3 points at the quarter pole. And then in the East, Charleston off and running. No real surprise. Once again, 18 points in their first 8 matches. Lou City and Detroit City 3 points behind, and the only other 2 teams that have double-digit points, Tampa Bay and the Birmingham Legion at the home of at Kaylor Hodges and at the USL show. So of these races that we're seeing so far, the West is the West, and they ain't wasting no time.
Yeah, the West. I mean, I think you're looking at New Mexico United, and you know what? Greg Hurst, he is showing who he was back in Omaha. And I said it on this last show. I knew that Greg Hurst was a lot better than he has been in previous years. On his first goal of the season, he takes a touch around the keeper and he spills it a little bit. It was a bit of a heavy touch. It looked a little clunky. These last 2 years, that Greg Hurst would have squared it right at the defender that was in net or would have put it straight into the side netting. He tucks it away very well. And that was what we saw when he was back at Union Omaha. Alex Tambakis has been on my chopping block of I can't stand watching him for a couple years now, and he's shutting me up. He is playing the best that he has in years.
Yeah.
And you know, in order for any team to win a championship, you have to have somebody click. And no better person than your star striker and your goalkeeper, huh? I mean, like sometimes that's all you need. And New Mexico is really impressing me. Monterey Bay, we talked about this. If you look at names on paper, it looks like they downgraded from last year. But if you look at the way that they're playing, just improvements to personnel on the field, this is such a better team than last year. And having your Alex Dixon and your Tristan Traeger on the same pitch is disgustingly good. And having somebody feed those players is great. I think that they are showing what I kind of hope they would be last year. For Sacramento, they are still just a wagon. They showed against Orange County just this last week when they decide to wake up a little bit to have one more cup of coffee that day that you just can't touch them.
Yeah.
Because it looked like all year that they just were disinterested. And then they play the team that beat them off a goalie goal, or they drew with on a goalie goal. And you can tell that they came out 16 seconds in. Rodrigo Lopez, which the week that he had for him to get the assist 16 seconds in, just beautiful soccer stuff, but also just Sacramento wasn't losing. And you could tell that early on. It's like, oh, whenever they just decide we're not losing, they can do that.
I mean, Sacramento, it seems to me that Sacramento is just one of the regulars of the USL Championship. And it doesn't matter what the off-season transactions are. They have a core, they have a philosophy, and they bring folks in that will embrace that philosophy and that approach instead of bringing in someone that might be, more star power and try to fit them into a system. It is folks that will fit into that system, and you make the collective better. It's a very Borg-like way of going about things in Sacramento, and you're seeing the results right now at the top of the West.
I mean, Trevor Amon he scored like 500 goals last year in League One.
Oh, true.
And that came from Arthur Rogers, who still looks really, really good with FC Tulsa right now. But Trevor Amon has 2 Arthur Rogers on both sides with like your whatever fullback pairing you want to go with in Sacramento. You have 2 of them, and they are a death by 1,000 crosses. And That's hard, especially when you're dealing with a league who you have a lot of young goalkeepers playing right now. A young goalkeeper getting used to having bodies in the box and having to go in and catch a ball, get a claim in the box. That's terrifying. And even so, even if you deal with it, 30 crosses in, the 31st comes in, you're a little bit unmarked, and it's a free header to whomever's in the box. They are a death by 1,000 crosses, and it works. And Trevor Amon is just built for that.
And that Eamon Zayed really could use Trevor right now with Hailstorm in USL League One. One other question before you go, and it has to do with the Jägermeister Cup. And I wanted to know what you thought about this particular element of play this year inside USL League One. I know that there is hope that over time it will expand and it will be an overarching USL element where it's championship and League One chasing after the Jägermeister Cup, where Jägermeister apparently they're diving in full. What do you think about this idea of this cup specifically this year inside League One, but hopefully expanding over time to include both of the leagues?
I love it. Even if it were to just stay in League One, we saw with the NBA that it can be super successful. I mean, it's something a little bit different. It's something that a club can market a little extra hard, right? They can sit there and say it's a club match. Like, this is a cup match. They can come in. There will be a winner because there are no draws. It ends in a penalty shootout. You want to see something entertaining? It ends in a shootout. You can market the crap out of that to your fans. So I think that's a plus. And I also think that if we see players truly buy into that this is another competition, as opposed to just a 34-week slog, that this is something that they can get up a little extra for. And I understand that professional athletes get up for every match the same, but we all know that's also kind of not true. If it's a little extra special, it's extra special for fan, for coach, for player. I think it's great. I think that getting a club or like a sponsor like Jägermeister, that while the branding of A Shot at Glory is hilarious, that's a major brand.
Yeah.
That is a major brand that if you've been out to party as a college kid one time, you are very well accustomed to. Unfortunately. And so I think it's great if the championship sees that this is a good product and the championship sees that it gets the League One side of this a little bit extra pumped up. I think they can also do that on the championship side as well. And marketing the fact that there are no losers, or there are no like ties, like somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. I think that's something that if you're trying to bring a new fan in, that's going to help a lot, because what's one of the things that you hear about soccer? How can it end in a tie?
It's boring.
It's boring. How can you end in a tie? That's the worst. This can't. This is the best way to market to new fans, and I think that's great.
Nobody's scored. It's boring. Cut the promo for me. And what's going on with the at the USL show?
We are back to for the glove of the game, recording that in a couple of hours. Actually, we are being joined by a League One keeper. I'll keep it that vague, but you saw him with one of the Open Cup matches that we discussed. So that's super exciting. Just more stuff coming out. Kit season also records tonight, and the main show Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or hopefully as early as possible the next morning. You'll be on your podcast players, so check it all out.
What he said at Kaylor Hodges at the USL show. It's great to always have Kaylor to talk about things in Championship and League One. Keep us all posted on everything. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend. As always, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
There we go. It's Kaylor. Kaylor's going to go chase his cat now and try and figure out where the cat is raising all kinds of hell and give it its own scratching post. I think it's probably going to need one of those 3-story scratching posts to kind of climb so he's not chewing up the sofa. So we need a report. We need a report on at the USL show about Kaylor's cat, spelled with 2 Ks, and how he's chewing up everything in Kaylor's pad. and how to figure out how not to happen. And you can't declaw the cat because that's just not fair, because then he can't climb any kind of things, He can't raise his or her own hell if he's declawed. You just have to understand it. That's just a part of the cat. But no, we need empirical evidence that the cat is doing what the cat is doing. Yeah, Emilio says hockey used to have ties. Yeah, and they used to have 4 periods too. Remember when they went from 4 periods to 3 and the entire world was just in an outrage? So thanks to, once again, Kaylor Hodges and our friends at the USL show. Niko Moreno coming up in a couple of minutes. And we will get the Pacific perspective on everything going on in Major League Soccer from Niko's point of view. And it has been a long slog. We've got to talk about the Arriaga trade. We've got to talk about what's going on right now in Seattle, because almost it's another year of Seattle having to come from lane 8 and try to figure out what to do. Zombie Sounders toward the run. 8 matches, 6 points. 8 matches, 6 points. So, Seattle down here. Yeah, Derek, I know. And, to get Niko's perspective on the Western Conference, we've always thought that it was important because since we're here in the Eastern Conference and we're on this side of the Mississippi River, to have somebody like Niko come in and talk about things out west, it gives us all it gives us the education that we're hunting for from the West, so we're all prepared come the postseason. Late in the year, you look at matchups and seeding and what to expect and all these kinds of things. So Kaylor with an update. No video, by the way. Cat has multiple scratching posts, refuses to put his paws on it. The only thing he scratches is my backpack jerk. About normal. Tears up the man's backpack. I just hope that your laptop's not in it at the time. Well, but if your laptop's in it and he can't really, if he scratches your laptop, then that is a true accomplishment for a cat. If he can scratch your laptop, kind of like the body on a car, like when you're trying to take the key and you're trying to open it with the key or something, and you end up scratching what's going on there. Maybe that's what it looks like if Kaylor's cat goes after his laptop. But yeah, apparently all he scratches up is the backpack. Doesn't go with the scratching posts. Probably chases after the sofa. I can see the edges of the sofa probably frayed a little bit. So Kaylor and his cat, 2Ks, adventures. But yeah, right now Seattle in the West, 8 matches, 6 points. That's not a good ratio. 1-4-3. They've only scored 9 goals this season. They've given up only 9. But 9 goals scored has them, let's see, tied for second. Well, actually, hang on. Let me see here. So 9 goals scored has them tied for second least in the West. And it has them tied for second overall. Second worst overall. Third worst overall. New England has only scored 5. Dallas has only scored 7. And you got a bunch of folks that have scored 9. And you look at those teams, if you ain't scoring, if you ain't scoring, putting the ball in the back of the net, you're probably not winning a whole lot of matches. So right now, the teams that have scored the least, New England, last in the East, NYC, Charlotte, Toronto, middle of the pack in the East, Nashville scored 9. Most of those are from Hani Mukhtar. And they are next to last in the East. 9 goals scored puts Houston in the middle of the pack in the West. Dallas has scored 7, and they are below Seattle. So in most of those cases, 5 goals, 7 goals, 9 goals. Actually, it might be more like 50-50, or slightly so. But if you have less than double-digit goals scored in Major League Soccer, 3 of the teams are okay. 2 of them are in the bottom of the playoff discussion in the East. The other 3, or 3 of the others, are having problems. One of them is Seattle. We'll catch up with Niko coming up in just a little bit. We've got our first bot of the morning on Twitch. So, Aaron, I hate to break it to you. I'm not gifting a sub to you. However, as we take care of this in real time, I'm claiming you as a bot, sir. And I'm doing it in all caps when I report you. submitting the report. And Aaron, you've been blocked. Now that I figured out how to do it. And Shooter, by the way, came in the other day. Shooter talking about his beloved Revs in the Twitch pitch. Shooter came in during our high school show the other day and was mad at Caleb Porter. So once again, remember, noon Eastern, it is the live high school show. It is Soccer's in Session presented by our friends at Kaiser Permanente. Every day during the playoffs, we go live at noon to break everything down in the Georgia high school playoffs, where you have three of the top five boys teams in the national rankings, with River Ridge and McIntosh and Hillgrove. The Georgia high school kids the coaches would out-coach Porter. Maybe. There are a couple of great coaches here in the state of Georgia, and it would be an interesting dynamic if you had a staff of, say, Frank Zamora Johnson Gainesville and his staff, Matt Cheeves at Dalton and his staff, Bunky Colvin and McIntosh and his staff, Phil Thomas and River Ridge and his staff, and the staff at Hillgrove. If you decided to take those staffs and go up against the New England Revolution, I'm sure the game would be incredibly competitive if the high school coaches could pick their roster. You give the high school coaches a roster to pick from, they lay it all out. That'd be a fun one. Do it for charity. Come up with a charity of our choosing. And we have the high school coaches versus Caleb Porter challenge, the New England Revolution. I think it'd be a fun one. I think that'd be pretty cool, actually. But so we've reported our bot for the morning, but that's always a fun thing to do. But yeah, I mean, right now the Western Conference, as we'll talk about it, we talked about hot seats in previous weeks. I think some seats have only gotten hotter. Lucci Gonzalez. But the thing about, and like I said, I think the thing about Lucci is when you think about San Jose, I think John Fisher's focused on his Sacramento ball club. And I think that Lucci is safe until then. I mean, until everything gets sorted with the soon-to-be former Oakland A's and John Fisher, and Fisher moves him to Sacramento so everybody can go watch Aaron Judge come to town instead of focus on, Oakland. You end up with a guy who's focused on other things. So it is that time. It's the last half hour of the show on a Thursday, which means we check and see what the mug is. We check and see how many cups of coffee he is in. And you know what? I'm going to find the open. I'm gonna roll the open. That's where we are. So here we go. Here's the open, because this guy's next. Time for the salute. Niko, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, what's going on, peeps? Just happy to be here. I got my 20-ounce Juan Valdez, the Colombian mountains within the mug. That is the one today. It's my 20-ounce cup because today I've had no time. This first one, but it's 20 ounces. I might be halfway down. This mug says I got no time but to fill that cup one time and move on with my day. Needed to get down here, talk to my guys from SDH, and here I am.
All right, so let's break it all down. I was discussing before you came on how we talked about hot seats, and I know that we got to talk about what's going on in Seattle because the roster is one man lighter. There was a trade that happened right at the edge of the deadline, and Javier Arriaga no longer a part of the discussion with you on a daily basis. What, in the grand scheme of things, does this mean, not having Arriaga around and him going off into other places inside Major League Soccer?
Well, look, honestly, it's a long time coming. This actually should have happened before the season even started. He's been in the trade block for, I want to say, year and a half, about a year, coming into the season by simply bringing in Nathan and even Bell from San Luis City. I think the plan was we're going to have a couple of guys that are going to come in and take the spots of AB Sissoko, who obviously no longer with the team. And it all appeared that the starting duo was going to be Yamar, Jackson Reagan, and then the backups were going to be Nathan, then, maybe Bell, maybe if necessary, in a three-man back line, Nuhu, and then Javi was going to be moved. However, I feel like the Sounders, Craig Weibold, the front office, might have maybe not necessarily. Maybe they had the offers that did not fulfill what they were looking for.
Yeah.
I think that maybe they overestimated the value of Javier Arriaga. Maybe they gambled by saying, hey, we're going to push this out all the way down to the last day of the trade window where teams are desperate, where maybe there's injuries to rosters, and we'll get the best value out of Javier Arriaga. The only counter to that, counter effect, counterproductive point is that Javier never played. And you can't, add value to a player that is sitting on your bench. And then in the last game as a Sounder, he has a bad turnover in front of the 18 where he tries to take on two Vancouver attackers in a press situation, loses the ball, results in a goal. Lucky for the Sounders, that didn't matter. And the New England Revolution were in such dire need and in such an awful position that they decided to pick up the player. Now, this is not a knock on Javier Arriaga. I think that a lot of the mistakes, especially that one, goes to lack of confidence, maybe trying to do too much because you don't really get the minutes. Brian Smetzer even himself mentioned after the postgame that it had to do with lack of play time. So Revolution takes them. I think Seattle does a big time move because they take off the entire salary of the Bucks. They get an international spot for 2025. Overall, they make about $1 million, a little bit over $1 million in cap space for the summer window. So that's a big move. They had the guys. They knew that they were going to be without them. So there isn't really a backlash to the team because he wasn't really supposed to be part of the plan. So I think everybody wins. Javier Arriaga himself wins because, to me, he is a starter in New England. He should walk into a starting position, something he didn't have here. He needed a change of atmosphere. He needed a change of scenery. And you could see it in his face, in his demeanor. He was working extremely hard. And look, honestly, training sessions had looked really well for him. And prior to that mistake against Vancouver, when the Sounders called his name, I thought he played very well. So all in all, it was the right move at the right time for everyone involved, including the player, including both clubs. So I just think this is a positive for absolutely everybody. There's no negative, no problem. Seattle is going to continue to move on without him. There was a lot of praising him because he was a part of the 2019 championship. He helped in the CCL run. He's a guy that was always positive and happy. And even when he was brought in as a player that was going to be a prospect and a future starter, he seemed like there was always someone in front of him. There was always Shane O'Neill or Kim Ki-hee or, Jackson Reagan. He seemed like he never really was given that role like maybe Chad and Yamar and even Roman. I mean, he just never had that chance. So I'm just glad that he's gone. He's moved on, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Before you came on, I was mentioning the current state of affairs for Seattle outside of Javier Arriaga's departure. To folks who have followed Major League Soccer over any period of time, looking at this start for Seattle, we've seen it before. So I don't know if we're just numb to it and understanding that there are seasons where Seattle gets off to a slow start. And you look at what's going on, everybody sits there in another 15 matches or so, which would put you with about 10 or 12 to go. Everyone's freaking out about Seattle. They're below the playoff bar, and you got the gnashing of teeth. You have the hands and the wringing of the hands, and people are cracking their knuckles and trying to figure out what's wrong. And then you get the zombie Sounders run where they sneak into the playoffs, even though that's not sneaking. They get into the playoffs, they make the run, and everything's right with the world. Is this another one of those years where when you're out of the blocks at 1-4-3, you're not scoring double-digit goals. You've scored 9 goals in 8 matches, and you're 6 points out of a playoff spot at the quarter pole. Where is there any concern among fans, or is this just like, yeah, we've seen this before, we know what's happening, and they're counting on that run that we've seen so many times in the past?
Oh no, there's definitely. I mean, that's a big convoluted question that I'm gonna have to answer in its entirety if you will give me the time.
Go for it,
look, the fans are desperate, and fans are rightfully indignant with this whole situation. They are upset. They feel like the team is not living up to their expectations, and they should be. And fans, even Brian Smetzer and everybody in this organization has said, look, fans have every right to voice their concerns, and if they're not pleased with the results and not pleased with the play on the field, they should be able to bring it out. So there's definitely no, at this moment in time, and the majority of those that have reached out to me and have commented, and I had a space this week on X where I allowed some of the fans to talk and voice their concerns. A lot of them are kind of thinking this is going to be just a season that's not going to end up with the team either with a championship or maybe even missing the playoffs. And I understand that thought process because two things. As part of your question, you mentioned that people are trying to wonder what's wrong with the Sounders.
Yeah.
I think that is a lot simpler than maybe people think, right? I mean, I've been saying since last year, since the departure and almost certain departure of Nicolás Odero, that this was going to be the end of an era, of a golden generation, of a team that in the last decade went to 4 MLS finals, won a CCL. I mean, they were the top of the crop. This was a team that was unbelievable. There was, how many times did I try to ask Garth about, can they be a dynasty? And if they win maybe 1 or 2 of those other titles, then they will certainly be a dynasty. And, they're still in the conversation of it. But that was going to come to an end. And this team got the right players at the right time and locked them in. Jordan Morris on a young contract, same as Christian Roldan, blowing up. Alex Roldan, he was so good when he first came in, and he very low on salary. You had Raul, you had Niko, but all of that was going to come to an end, and that's what happened last season. Niko leaves. This team, I think this year has lacked a lot of leadership on the field, and we'll get to that because it was talked about this week by the captain of today, Stefan Fry. But I think that's how simple it is. I just think it's the end of an era, it's the end of a golden generation. Seattle today in the roster has good players, right? I mean, I think Jordan's still a good player. I think Albert Rusnak's still a good player. I think Joe Paulo is a very good player. But there's just no game changer. There's no X factor. A guy that's just going to walk in and just take over. You look at the Western Conference, and LA Galaxy has a couple of game changers between Ricky and Pencil. I mean, there's some game changers there. You look at RSL. Chicharango's a monster. He's a menace. Gomez has been so good. Vancouver has done it with maybe less as X factors, although, I mean, I guess Ryan Gold, as so many like to call him, the Irish Messi or something like that is what I heard, or something like that. I mean, it's interesting that they maybe don't have those big time players, but they have done it with the good system. So in conclusion, Seattle doesn't have that guy. Pepa was supposed to be that guy. Pedro Leviga was supposed to be the player that was going to come in and give you something differently. Unfortunately for Seattle, he's been hurt. We just heard from Brian this week that he's going to be out another 4 weeks. That's another month for him to just step into the field. So you got to give him time to get in rhythm. So you might not be without your young DP, your X factor, for over a month, because I'm not going to say that it's going to be 4 weeks. So with all those circumstances, Seattle just doesn't have enough to get out of this funk, I don't think. And when in 2016 Siggy Smith was let go, that wasn't the only factor. the reality is that you were going to bring in a guy like Nicolas Odero that put his team on his shoulders, and he was the newcomer of the year that season. You don't have that this year. Maybe could you think that Pepo is going to be 100% healthy and be that guy? Maybe, but the odds aren't high. Because we don't know where he's at health-wise. And people are starting to be concerned if he's ever going to be 100% healthy. And now with this $1 million in cap, can the Sounders go out there and get a guy that's pretty good? Yeah, I think so. But it's not going to be a DP. That's just not the reality unless they move some guys, unless they move Raul, unless they move Albert. But I just don't foresee it. So because of that, I think Seattle's going to barely make the playoffs. I think they're going to fight. They're going to grind. They're going to get in the playoffs. But I do not see them coming up top of the Western Conference. They just don't have the roster right now. They don't have that X factor. He's a good roster. But right now, there's just better ones in the West.
So then is Columbus the man right now in your mind, considering what they did in addition to everything in Major League Soccer, considering what they did to Monterrey last night in the Triple C, getting a 2-1 win? Is Columbus the man right now to you?
Columbus been the man. Columbus told you they were the man when they brought in Cucho Hernandez and they figured out how to bring in Diego Rossi because they knew that Celada John was going to be gone. When they went and got Wilfred Nancy, when they built this fantastic structure and a team that went out there and just bullied Monterrey yesterday with their own play and their ability to connect space and match the physicality of Monterrey. And when they had to absorb pressure, they did. And when they had to get on the counter and move, it was just poetry in motion with, Cucho and Rossi and Rowe. I thought he had a great game. I mean, they've been the man. And if you hadn't seen it, then you better chickadee check yourself or you wreck yourself because it was always going to be Columbus. When I saw this CCL Cup, CCL, you can't say that. When I saw this CONCACAF Cup matchups, everybody was talking about Messi and friends. Oh, they're the team that's going to come out. They're the team that's going to take over. I only saw Columbus. It was always going to be them. They just had a balanced roster. They had an identity. They had a soccer module. They had a guy like Wilfred that was willing to play with fire and Sid Cucho and still was able to get out of that elimination round. I mean, man, they just have it all. So, yes, Columbus is the man. They're going to continue to be the man until they get knocked down in the ring. And I just don't know if there's anybody that can do that right now.
And I mean, right now you look at the East, and yes, Messi and friends are on top, but they've also played the most matches. And one of the other things, and this was another one of the reasons that having you on every Thursday is for me, it's a good chance to educate and to let everybody into the inner workings of Major League Soccer. Messi and friends with Chris Henderson and David Beckham pulling the strings and bringing in personnel. What we need, and this is something that we've championed for a long time, and it reinforced it yesterday and the last 2 days with bringing in Matias Rojas. Mm-hmm. We need to have a greater sense of transparency as to how these deals continue to get done, because all it does is it feeds the beast, and you bring in the black helicopters, and you're wondering how is this happening, where they bring in all the players and it doesn't stop. I mean, it literally is like Major League Soccer's version of the Terminator, and it absolutely will not stop. You get an injury, you bring in somebody else. You get an injury, you bring in somebody else. And you sell off DeAndre Yedlin to Cincinnati for one of the oddest allocation money figures I've ever seen, which to me at the time showed me how much against the cap they were, and yet they keep dealing and dealing and dealing. Having somebody like Chris Henderson to pull those financial strings has to have been a godsend for them because of this jam that they keep getting into, but they keep adding folks to get out of it.
Yeah.
Blows my mind that they're able to do this stuff.
No, and I'm with you. I guess there'll never be a day where there's full transparency with the books. And I understand where you're coming from, but that's just something that no owner is going to want out there. But I think it does go back to what you said. Is Chris Henderson understanding how to utilize the salary cap? I mean, he learned from the best, Dr. Strange himself, Garth Lagerwey. And because of that, I think that when you combine that experience plus his knowledge of the league and his network of scouting that was always fantastic here in Seattle, it just makes a bad mother, Paul Fiction type. It does. That's just plain and simple. Combined with the open checkbook with blank checks of here you go, just do whatever you want. And oh, by the way, you can just say, hey, why don't you come and play with Messi? I mean, that's a pretty good perk, right? I mean, it's, oh, you don't like Messi? How about Sergio Busquets? That'd be fun, right? Or Luis Suarez, do you like him? He'll sign your jersey. I mean, all these kids are coming to play, and, it could very well be for a lot less than they can make anywhere else, just for the chance to play with the GOAT. So, it's just so much going on right for Inter Miami that they could go out there and reach absolutely anybody. And it's kind of in LAFC is a separate situation, right? Is the lights, is the city, is the money. We've had our concerns and scratched our heads about that book and how they make certain things happen in the past. So is that going to happen? Probably not. I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue, because I do believe that there are going to be changes with the salary cap. They're going to be adding some adjustments to it, and maybe that's just going to make it a lot more palatable for us to understand when guys like that come in, and a team like Inter Miami that just seems to have an ace under their sleeve, and we've already seen 6 aces in the deck, and we're like, where are these aces coming from? Is it an ace of stars? Like, that's not even a card. So it's that's kind of what it is.
Eastern Conference right now, Red Bulls are second at 16 points. And it's a logjam. Both conferences right now, you're at the quarter pole. It's a logjam. 7 points in the East, separating 10 from 1. And then if you pull, Messi and friends out of the hat, then second to 11th is separated by 6 points. Western Conference, you'd mentioned LAG with the protein power pack, the 3P of Puig, Peck, and Paintsel. They're at the top right now. Vanni Sartini in Vancouver, in his system, doing it the way that they want. They've got guys that fit what they want to do. They're not pulling guys in saying, hey, square peg, fit into this round hole. It is doing it the way that Sartini wants it done, and they're doing well so far. RSL, you mentioned Chicho Arango. Colorado, Chris Armas is out to a solid start right now at 15 points. And
starting to cook.
Yeah.
That's another team that they went and spent, and they brought talent, and we questioned it. It didn't look good. What was smelling out of the kitchen was just, the onion and the garlic and the stuff that were just starting to prep. And now they're putting in, their chicken and their rice, and now it's smelling pretty good. And now they're cooking. That team is beginning to pull the results. You're starting to see Jordy get some traction. In general senses, this team was pretty new, so we should have known that there was going to be a little bit of a learning curve, new coach, new system, new everything, and now they're putting it together. So those are the things that Seattle is going to have to kind of fight with. I look at the standings, and I see Timbers at 11, and I look at that roster, and that's not a roster for an 11th place team. So that's probably another squad that's going to continue to get better and continue to get better. And I told you guys about Santi Moreno. He's getting hot, and Anthony, and Evander just looks like the weight of his shoulder of maybe, I don't know, leaving to South America or that being an option just off. And now he's just playing nice and cool and chill, and he just seems to do no wrong. So that's a tough Western Conference. Houston is where they're at, and Ache just got his first minutes, and they've had a whole bunch of injuries, and no Quinones, and guys they haven't even replaced, like Barrett. They're going to bring in a striker, so they're just getting better, and that's kind of the situation that, going back to where we started, puts Seattle at such a tough position, because when you're in a deficit of points and everybody around you is just getting better, even when you as a club and as a team start to get some traction, it might just be too late. I mean, in our space, in our X space yesterday, had Jeremiah Oshan of Sounder Hard with us, and he said, "Look, at some point, it just becomes a mathematical issue, mathematical problem. It's just you just don't have enough points, and now you have 2 road games back to back. That's difficult, man. It's tough."
Yeah, and the way things are in each conference right now, you have a good week, you rocket up the table. You have a bad week, you could go from 2 to 10 or 3 to 11 or something like that. Time to play the game, and it is not necessarily the Price is Right. Although I will say that with you doing as well as you did last week, I know that one match in particular where we were staring at a total and going, "You've got to be kidding me." Easiest play on the board, take the over in the Cali Classico at 3.5, and it ended up going at 7. So that wasn't the easiest play on the board for anybody. Let's roll through the matches. If there's one you want to talk about, you yell stop and we talk about it. Start things off, and it is all on Saturday. It is all stuff on Saturday. There is nothing going on because then you end up in the midweek with matches that have been postponed. So it is all on Saturday here starting at 1:45 Eastern. Austin, dog at home. LAG on the road at a plus 127. I think you can take the over again there because you're going to take.
And I say point because I want you to give me the breakdown on the goals because the LA Galaxy have not just won 3 of the last 5 in Austin, but 3 of the last 5 between these two have had more than 3 goals. Was a 3-3 draw, or if it's a 3-1. I mean, for the LA Galaxy side, these teams have gone back and forth, and both of these teams really lack a defensive consistency. And I would think LAG is going to win this pretty easily, but maybe Austin scores 1 or 2 on this defense. So it's going to be a big one. So give me the compos on the goals.
3.5 over under at a plus 126. That's where it starts. So that's when it flips from a minus to a plus. 4.5 is a plus 277.
Ooh, too rich for me. That sounds like a sucker's bet. So give me the 3.5 with the LA Galaxy, and I'll lock that in.
There you go. So he locks that one in right out of the blocks. It's going to be a lunchtime kick at Q2. Crew hosting CF Montreal, the Wilfred Nancy Bowl. Crew heavy favorite at a minus 192. Seattle on the road at DC. Seattle an underdog. DC's a plus 131.
Ooh, what's the number on Seattle?
Plus 192 in the composite.
I don't know if it's good enough for me. Look, there's a lot of turmoil in Seattle right now. I said I was going to touch a little bit on this. Stefan Fry mentioned that he had a players-only meeting with the team. That tells me something that I've been wanting to hear, and it's we got to make a change. I keep hearing it's still early. We're okay. We're going to be fine. Trust the process. It's too late for that. It's over. It's over. It's not early in the tournament. You got to get going. These teams are getting going. I finally heard Jordan Morris say yesterday, are we against the wall? Yes, we're against the wall. Good. Now you come and attack like a rabid badger because you're cornered. That's what this team needs, is a little fire in their behind. And look, if Niko Moreno got to take the heat because, hey, Brad Smetzer has come straight at me, quoting my tweets and all of these things. Hey, you know what? I'll be that guy. It's okay. I got to ask the questions. I got to, bring up the stuff. Steph from Fry called the people that were talking about Joe Paulo not being backed up by his friends, that it was just BS, that they don't know the locker room. Hey, look, you know what? That's just what I see. Oh no. Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Oh, man.
I've had that happen so many times. It's an old tripod that I got to fix, but it's all right. That's part of it. That means, Niko, be quiet about the Sounders.
Wow.
I'm not taking this one at all. I don't want anything to do with these bet. I do think DC United kind of has the odds on their side, and I think they do end up winning this game, but it'll be a heartbreaker. I think Seattle will play well. I think Seattle will score, but at the end of the day, I think DC is just too much on the offensive side.
All right, so let's continue to rock and roll through the grid here. Cincinnati hosting Colorado. Cincinnati's on the minus side. Messi and friends are at New England. Messi and friends are favored at a plus 114. NYC on the minus side hosting Charlotte. Red Bulls are on the minus side heavy at a minus 154 hosting Vancouver. Vancouver on the road is a plus 400 at Red Bull Arena. Draws a
plus
293.
400.
Draws a plus 293.
What's the draw?
Plus 293.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with the draw. That 400 looks good because look, this Vancouver team is 3-0 on the road, and we talked about systems. Their system has been working, but so has the Red Bulls, and I feel like the Red Bulls have enough of a effective press and counter press to make things a lot harder for Vancouver. Look, Vancouver came to Lumen Field and did not blow Seattle off the field. I mean, they kind of had some turmoil and they kind of melted down. The Seattle Sounders did, and they kind of gave up this game from the red card of Jackson Reagan to then later the red card to Alex Roldan. I mean, that just was self-inflicted wounds. Were they really dangerous? Seattle was not really, but I don't think Vancouver really, that 2-0 score doesn't tell you the whole story of it. So because of that, I'll stick with the draw. I think that the Red Bulls are really good. I think Vancouver has a system. I think that's a good draw for me.
Orlando City, the purple team, hosting Toronto FC south of the border. They're a massive favorite at a minus 200. Union favored at home against RSL. Fire favored at home against Atlanta United. Fire's a plus 123. Atlanta United's a plus 184.
Atlanta's a plus 184 in this one?
Uh-huh.
Is it the injuries? I mean, man, Chicago just, I don't know if they could, beat, a USL team at this point. They just shoot themselves in the foot, man. I might take Atlanta on that one, maybe like a 2-0 win, nothing crazy, nothing outrageous. But yeah, man, I'd be willing to take Atlanta on that one. And then you mentioned RSL. I wanted that one. RSL Philadelphia. What's that one looking like?
Plus 277 on the draw. Plus 272 RSL to win.
Give me RSL. Okay. Give me RSL to win. RSL has been a nightmare for Philadelphia in just the overall head-to-head. This RSL team, I don't need to say it again, is one of my favorites. I love the roster build. Love Chicho Arango. He's coming from just being dominant, just scoring, assisting, intercepting passes, his press. He could play as a false 9, as a 10, as a 9. I mean, he could do it all. Gomez is heating up. This is one of those other things that I got to pat myself on the back. I said this is the Gomez year, and boy, has it been the Gomez year. He looks really good. So RSL, with Philadelphia having to think about playing back-to-back against Seattle with an already set roster because it was a postponed game, I think it makes things difficult for Philadelphia, and I think RSL gets the win.
Copa Tejas, FC Dallas, Houston Dynamo. The Juice Boxers think it's going to be a dead draw. They're both even numbers on either side. Minnesota favored at home slightly, hosting Sporting. Nashville at home because they're playing San Jose, favored at home. And then LAFC, the late game against Portland. LAFC favored at home at a minus 189.
Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. What's the draw on that one?
Plus 343 in the composite.
I don't know if they'll draw again because it's been draw after draw after draw. But for those numbers, man, I might take it. Look, am I bold enough to take Portland at LAFC when, they have problems of their own? No, not really. LAFC hasn't been brilliant or, this team that's just unbelievable. I think that eventually when the summer window ends, we'll be singing another tune. But for now, man, I could take that draw between Portland and LAFC for sure. I think Portland, again, there's a lot of things to like about Portland. But a lot like LAG, a lot like, what was the other thing we talked about, having no defense? Austin is just, a mess in general. But in Miami, same thing, pretty good offensively, not so much defensively. Portland has those same issues, especially in midfield. Diego Charay, you're starting to finally see that the fountain of youth has maybe drawn out. I mean, you're starting to see him slow down and He just passed Wondolowski for most matches for one particular club, and he's been a legend. He's been so good, but you're starting to see that age hit. So I think defensively they've struggled, but on offense, man, again, love Evander. I think Felipe Mora is starting to come through for him, and if that guy gets hot, it gives you a different type of scorer up top. So yeah, I think this could be a draw. It's going to be a fun one. Give me the goals just for fun. What's the goals on this one?
All right, the goals on this one. Where did I do it? Oh, there it is. Wrong tab, wrong computer. All right, so LAFC and Portland. We'll start with 3.5, just as a base, as a knowledge base here. So 3.5, you're at a plus 140. 4.5, you're at a plus 301.
No.
So you're gonna go safe at 3.5 at plus 140.
Yep, give me the draw and give me the 3.5. I think that's a solid pick, and we'll see how that goes. But we have been doing pretty good, man. That LAG plus the goals really did well for me. So I think we've done good, man. I'm excited. We're on a roll here. Let's keep it going.
All right. So what's going on? Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports.
All right, Soccer Bar will be back here in just a few minutes. I don't have the rundown right in front of me, but we're going to be getting into, obviously, the big win by Columbus. We're going to break that down. We're going to go in depth. We're going to hear the protagonist there. We're going to hear from Wilfred. We're going to hear from Cucho. We're going to talk about the next upcoming MLS week, of course. Talk about Javier Arriaga, what some of his teammates, say about his departure, the impact he could have over there. In our Pulso Sports, you could also find Brian Smetzer being very spicy this week, coming at the press guys, talking about moving on from that meltdown. You could also hear Stefan Fry talking about the similar things. And I will be adding that X space we had yesterday. It was so much fun. So many people were able to hop on, talk about their concerns on Craig Weibel, their concerns on the team, what's going on. Jeremiah was on, talked for a long time. So that was really fun. I'm going to put the audio into a video, and we're going to put that in our YouTube channel. So check that out. We should have that up by the evening of today.
Looking forward to it, as always, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us here, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, my friends. Have a good one. Enjoy it.
All right, that is Niko Moreno, and it's always great to catch up with Niko and get things and get his thoughts on everything Major League Soccer, not just Seattle, not just the West, but all across the board. Okay, once again, programming reminder, 6 o'clock, a little before, Trinity Christian at Perry. That is on our Mixlr site, soccerdownhere.mixlr.com. If you're accessing it through a web browser, download the Mixlr app, Mixlr. Follow Soccer Down Here. You get all of our live games, and you can go back and listen to all of our live games that we've had so far this year. And then we'll set you up. We'll get you ready for the playoffs. Next week, very, very busy playoff week. Quarters and semis lined up for the GHSA playoffs coming up at noon Eastern. It is going to be Soccer is in Session. We're going to catch up with one of the coaching Kreitners at McIntosh and talk girls. And we're also going to catch up with our friends at Colquitt County and find out about the boys. We're going to tape that interview coming up here in about 15 minutes. But once again, Soccer is in Session live at noon here across the network. We're going to go through the brackets, go through the results of yesterday, get you ready for the 2A, the 4A, and the 6A girls today, and we'll go from there. So once again, thanks to Kaylor Hodges, the USL Show, at Kaylor Hodges, at the USL Show. Thanks to El Rolo and W on the Twitters, and Niko for coming in every Thursday. Thanks to you guys for discussing everything that went on in the Premier League, and referees under fire for their fandom, and front offices and owners coming under heat because they really are venting their spleen. So we'll be back at it tomorrow. 9:30, our friends, hopefully, from Beyond Goals Mentoring will catch up with us. Jason will be with us at 10 o'clock to start the weekend whip around. Patent pending, trademark coming sooner, hopefully, rather than later. And we will discuss everything to get you ready for Atlanta United in Chicago, the Twos and Fire 2, and everything in all the divisions from 10:30 on to get you ready for the weekend. Maddie and I are looking forward to being at Reformation Brewing on Friday to unveil Georgia Impact in WPSL on a Friday night for the 2024 season. So that is the weekend. Soccer's in Session live at noon. Little before 6 o'clock, it is Trinity Christian and Perry. First round of the playoffs in Quad A. We'll be down in Perry for that one. Jason will be there catching up with our friends from both of those schools. And then Friday morning, 9:05, we'll have the show as normally, get you ready for the weekend. And Maddie and I will be at Reformation to unveil the Georgia Impact for 2024 in the WPSL. So very, very busy day. Busy time as always. Thanks for hanging out with us as you always do. For everybody here at SDH, I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out with us once again. Mucha Platiel, play it safe since it's the end of the show. Means we get to do this. See you in about 45 minutes.